Hi guys, this is Emma, the vlog lady, and today I'm going to be taking a closer look at part 14 of Twin Peaks called We Are Like the Dreamer, and I'm just going to basically rewatch this episode and talk my way through it. Okay, so we start off with Gordon Cole phoning Lucy. I really like this scene because it was nice to see Lucy interact with Gordon Cole, and in fact Kimmy Robertson interact with David Lynch, because she has been quite involved in the Twin Peaks fan scene, and I think that she has a lot of loyalty towards David Lynch, and so it's just nice to see them having this scene together. And of course Gordon Cole's question to her about whether she has been there over the years sounds a bit strange, but it's not that unlikely that someone would have the same job for all of that time. It just makes it sound like she's never been home, like she's been at the sheriff's station all this time. And we don't know if the strange silence is because Gordon Cole can't hear Lucy, or because he just doesn't know how to respond to her because what she says is so, like, obvious, you know? It's also pretty interesting that Gordon Cole doesn't know that there's a different sheriff, and he mistakes Frank for Harry. I think Frank and Harry are so similar. Michael Ontkean could have played this role. He is a quiet man, Frank, and he's a good man. He has a good heart. He knows how to run the ship. I think that, you know, as brothers they're very similar. Okay, so we get this scene with Tammy and Albert, and Albert explains the Blue Rose cases. He tells the story about this woman who, Philip Jeffries, was on the case, and when they opened the room they found a woman with a gun pointing at another woman who was exactly the same as the woman pointing the gun, and Tammy interprets this as a tulpa. If you're a fan, you've probably already googled this or read theories about it. So the idea of a tulpa is very interesting and kind of suggests how Dougie was created, I guess. But in the scene I personally wondered if the person was a doppelganger, or whether the word tulpa was the correct way to ascribe what this was. I don't know if that's the same as a doppelganger or if that's a completely different concept. In terms of Cooper's doppelganger, I thought that there was a direct opposite to what the real Coop was. So that's what the doppelganger was. He was the reverse of what the good Coop was. But Dougie, on the other hand, is something completely different and was, I assume, imagined or created by evil Coop. So next we have Cole coming into the room, and this window cleaning guy starts doing the window, and when I first saw this I was like, is this like semaphore flags, you know? Is there a secret message here? But I think that is just a plain and simple joke. So Diane appears on the scene looking as aloof as ever, and she is still holding this barrier between her and the rest of the team. She's acting like she's not one of them. She's on a different side, and she may well be. We don't know enough yet to interpret whether she is good or bad. I'm going with the idea that she is good. But in this scene I have to say that when she found out about Janie, her response, it seemed almost acted. But I think Laura Dern is a good enough actress to be able to deliver a line so that it is ambiguous, so that we don't know whether Diane is going like mock shock, you know, like, oh my god, Janie. I just think that the way she delivered that line, like supposedly finding out for the first time that Janie and Dougie were involved in this situation, it seemed really fake. So it's illuminating to find out that Janie and Diane are sisters, because they are so similar in character now that you think about it. Really tough women, able to hold their own in a world of men. And I think that maybe the characters are so similar that's possibly why they fell out and why they dislike each other, or at least why Diane dislikes Janie. There may be a touch of regret when she says that they are estranged. Obviously a difficult thing when you don't have family. Diane seems to be on her own as well in life, so perhaps she has a moment of regret, contemplation about what it could have been had she stuck in with Janie. Then we have this hilarious scene with Gordon Cole bringing the FBI agents. It's just so overdone that it's hilarious. And I don't know if they've done something with the footage there, whether they've slowed it down or speeded it up, but he
looks like a cartoon figure as he's banging on the desk.
So I have to say as well that I'm really liking Tammy now, because at the start of this season she was sexually objectified, I think. She was looked at differently by the characters in the piece, and I think that made us look at her differently as well. I think she was undervalued as a character, and I think that she has been on a steep learning curve as well since she's been incorporated into this team of FBI agents. I like her presence in these scenes. I think she's like a calming influence, and I like that she explained to the audience in this scene what a tulpa was, and it almost feels like we're on the journey with Tammy. So Gordon starts to talk about his Monica Bellucci dream. There has been very few references, I think, to real life people in Twin Peaks, and I guess Monica Bellucci is like iconic enough for either David Lynch or Gordon Cole to mention like this. I love this dream sequence. It is very beguiling, and I like that it plays out in black and white, and the elements of it play out like an actual dream. Cooper mysteriously appearing, and then that feeling of dread and not quite knowing what's going to happen next, not quite knowing if you're in control or what the laws are of what you can see and what you can touch and what you can feel. So this whole message in the dream made me feel that it is quite important to the overall story of Twin Peaks in this particular season and Twin Peaks as a whole. And I did start to wonder whether they are going down this line where there may be an alternative world, perhaps in someone's mind, perhaps the alternative world is a tangible one, but I also think that perhaps this scene is saying, like, in relation to the tulpa scene as well, like, we can imagine or we can manifest a good dream if we want, and that's what the message of this scene might be. She says, who is the dreamer? Either that implies that there is someone with an identity that we need to know, or it implies that just whoever the dreamer is, they have so much responsibility to manifest a good world, a good dream. I love that they incorporated this scene with David Bowie. I think that was a great tribute if that's all we are going to get. And when I first watched this scene play out, it struck me as being different to the movie, and I figured it was from The Missing Pieces, but something didn't seem quite right to me, so I played the missing piece alongside the episode to see if they were the same, and it seemed to me like they were the same. And then I went online and someone said no, the voice has been dubbed over with a voice actor because the original voice was either embedded with music, or they want to use that voice actor again to say something that Philip Jeffries' character must say in a future episode. So I had another listen, and it took me a few listens before I could actually detect the differences, so good job voice actor guy, because it was very, very similar. And the scene looks so different again in black and white. Puts another perspective on that scene, doesn't it? It's like allowing you to see it in a different way without all of the static stuff that was put over it in Fire Walk With Me. It's also interesting that Cole and Albert both say that they forgot about this particular moment, and that perhaps they are just starting to remember it now, as if their memories had been affected by Jeffrey's appearance, in the same way that the sheriff and the men later forget in the woods when they find Nato. They also have a memory issue. Maybe the forgetfulness is not to do with the fact that a portal was there, maybe it's to do with the fact that there are two realities that have merged at some point. I still think that this is a possibility that there are two realities, and I'll talk about that later on when there is another scene coming up that makes me think that. Here we are with the scene with Chad. So basically I just wanted to applaud at this point when Chad was taken away, because it was like, thank God. We have Sheriff Truman, Hawk, Andy and Bobby arrive at the woods to take their hike up to Jack Rabbit's palace. And I have to say that I think that these scenes were some of the most beautiful that we've seen in the woods of Twin Peaks. So serene, so bright. I think that we are used to seeing like the woods when they are dark, windy and scary. In the original Twin Peaks we saw a lot of that. I think perhaps that's to do with the fact that what they find could possibly link in with the White Lodge. Strange pool that seems like the entrance to the Black Lodge, except it's white, so is this the entrance to the White Lodge deep in the woods here? I really like the moment when Bobby reconnects with his father again. In the original show we saw Bobby and Major Briggs have a fraught relationship for most of the time. I think Bobby now is looking back with a lot of nostalgia and realising the good aspects of his relationship with his father. Perhaps Major Briggs's death helped him to accept that who his father was and the fact that he had to spend a lot of time on his work. But clearly he also spent a lot of time with Bobby, and maybe Bobby just didn't appreciate those moments until he is an older man himself and he knows how meaningful that time was. So when I saw this scene with the mist, I mean, it looks like a fairy glade at first, and then there's this weird electricity. I think that all of the men here seem to have a delayed response to seeing a naked woman lying on the ground. I think that their training should have come into play a little bit quicker, but they all seem a little stunned and almost as if they are under the spell of something, so perhaps they are being affected by the energy in the area. I expected one of them to take off their coat and cover her or check her vital signs and see if she was injured in any way or call for help, but they just kind of stood, except for Andy, who seems to step up to the hero role pretty quickly. He is pure-hearted, I think, Andy, so I think that's why he is pulled into this portal here, because he has no expectations, he has no intellectual objections. He's almost like a blank slate that the fireman can write his instructions on. So this black and white place where the giant slash the fireman appears, I think that many people are theorizing that this is the White Lodge now. It certainly seems pretty serene in this location. Andy is shown this montage of images that I think he interprets them. I think he internalizes them. The sequence of pictures plays out a bit like a dream, whereas the pictures don't really seem linked at first, but we can create a story around all of the pictures. So the scene of the men converging on Jack Rabbit's palace again reminded me a little bit of the way that the woodsmen appeared outside the convenience store when they were just walking back and forward, almost as if they were stuck in some kind of weird loop. So Andy takes Nato to the jail cells where Chad is being held, as well as a guy with a bloody face who many people have theorized is Billy, the mysterious Billy. I just can't see this as being Billy because he's so horrific, and I think that Audrey mentioned she was having an affair with him. So I can't see her being attracted to this guy in any way, shape or form, because he is... I mean, he comes across as being mentally deficient. He repeats everything that he hears, just in a similar way to Dougie. I started to wonder whether this guy was devolving in some way, whether he was a good guy, whether he was the kind of Billy, if he is Billy, that Audrey might have respected and loved, and he might have been part of the community and that's why everybody knows him and loves him, but now he's devolving into some kind of half-wit, into some kind of creature that isn't really human anymore. He is being affected by the negative energy in the same way that kid was when they were projectile vomiting in the car. Maybe we are seeing the physical and mental effect of the dark energy from the Black Lodge, the dark energy that is converging because Evil Coop is still out there, and maybe this guy Billy, if he is Billy, is an example of what will happen to everyone eventually. But certainly the fact that there is a guy who is bleeding from the nose and mouth, and that has been mentioned by both Audrey in the previous episode, and then it's mentioned again at the end of the episode by the girl in the roadhouse, I think that is an undeniable link. So next we see James and the green glove guy, I like to call him. And they are security guards at the Great Northern, something I completely missed the first time I watched this episode. We get this very absurd story about the green glove, and I'm thinking that maybe the green glove doesn't actually have the power and that this man, this boy, really has the power. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. Is it Freddy? I think it's like a placebo sort of thing, and that he thinks he's powerful when he has the green glove, but really the power is up here and in here, you know? But the idea that the glove, it's sort of linked in with me to the shovels as well, because they're like gardening equipment. And maybe these items are just being used as tokens to encourage people of Twin Peaks, encourage various characters of Twin Peaks to assume their power. So James goes into the underbelly of the Great Northern, and the hum does seem pretty loud down there. Maybe it's just echoing around. The last shot we see in the Great Northern is that door, so I'm assuming that James is going to go towards that door and see what's behind it, and maybe there's something that's affecting that hum. Does anyone still think it's Josie at this point? Because I know that when the hum storyline originally started, that a lot of people thought that it was Josie. I think it would be really odd at this stage if Josie was just brought into it as being still there, still trapped there. Maybe it would be a nice way to release that character, because of the idea that she has been stuck in the wood there, stuck in the doorknob, stuck in the walls or whatever. It's a horrible idea actually, and maybe that would just be a nice release for the character. Sort of like a genie, shut up. Sort of like a genie out of a lamp, right? And is there any relevance in the fact that James can hear the hum as well? I mean, is it only certain people who can hear that hum, or is it everybody? So finally we get this Sarah Palmer scene. I'm so blown away by the Sarah Palmer scene still, and there have been so many theories about what's happened to Sarah Palmer that I've read in the past few days. You can read a lot of these in the comment section in my last video. Lots of people have different ideas on what has happened. Lots of people think Sarah was always possessed and that she was the frog moth girl, and some people think that this was a recent thing. Some people think that this isn't even Sarah, that this is a tulpa or a doppelganger. The real Sarah is being kept captive at home, and that's why the noise was emerging from her kitchen, because there were two Sarahs there. I've had to think about it, and I certainly can't imagine that Sarah Palmer, the Sarah Palmer we saw reacting to Laura's death, reacting to Leland, the first and second season of Twin Peaks, I can't imagine that this was going on with Sarah back then, that something was inside her that was evil like this, and it would make no sense to me. If we think of like scenes like her reaction to Leland assaulting Laura at the dinner table, for example, that Sarah Palmer seemed innocent, that Sarah Palmer seemed hysterical and seemed powerless, whereas this Sarah Palmer seems like she could just take down anybody at any time. And one idea I had was that Sarah Palmer was meant to be Laura's protector, and that because she failed at that, this inner being that she was always hosting turned to the dark side. I mean, I was having a dream last night. You know those wind up lips that you used to get in a joke shop? I was dreaming that the lips that we see inside Sarah Palmer were like jumping along the street and they were singing Just You and I. That's how Twin Peaks has affected my dream life. But yeah, I mean, the images that we see here are so bizarre. They totally imprint themselves on your mind and memory. Horrific. I initially thought that mouth reminded me of the monkey in Fire Walk With Me that we see right at the end, because in that scene we do see like the monkey's mouth sort of glowing against the darkness of that scene, but here it looks like a human mouth. The hand actually seems to remove an inner mask as well to reveal that smile. I think that you can tell from the demeanour of Sarah in this scene that she is pretty different from the person that we saw in the supermarket. She was pretty hysterical, pretty nervous and jumpy and unsure of herself in that scene. And the next scene we had, I think that was Sarah at the door talking to Hawk. She seemed like this Sarah, so perhaps the change happened in between those scenes. She is a little bit like Evil Coop, I think, in the way that she delivers her dialogue without any intonations. There's just flat expressions. So lastly we get the scene of the girls at the Roadhouse. I felt like it meant more than any other scene at the Roadhouse that we've had so far, and I felt like that because it was connected back to the Audrey scene, but it was also connecting, I think, in a way to earlier events in the episode, and particular to the dream sequence that Gordon Cole narrates. There is something terribly off in this scene. So basically one of the girls here seems to be interrogating the other, and she looks at her as if she knows that what she's saying isn't entirely true, or she looks at her as if she pities her because she knows something that the other girl doesn't know. And that is particularly evident when she asks her what her mother's name is, and there is a little bit of hesitation before she says Tina. The girl describes Billy as bleeding from the nose and from the mouth, and then she has these strange moments where she tries to think about her uncle. Now, this seems to be a very important point, that she can't remember whether her uncle is there or not. It made me wonder whether this girl is actually wavering between two realities. She doesn't really know what's going on. She seems to be giving this other girl details that may or may not be true. So the other girl is picking up on that fact, and the merging of the two realities, this is so difficult to explain, but the merging of the two realities is what this girl is describing. Audrey describes the scenario as being a dream to her. So either Audrey is in one reality and this girl is in another, or they are both in the same reality. But neither of them can get a hold on which reality it is. I just think that the whole episode here was making a point about the dreamer and the dream, and what it means to have a consciousness that is an actual reality, and what reality actually means to one person, what it means to another person, whether a dream can be a reality, whether a dream can manifest reality. And in that case, I think it is plausible that the idea of Billy being a marker for what is going on with these two realities, it's trying to tell us something important. And I don't even think that a lot of Lynchian things can be decoded. I don't think it's possible. And that's it, really. Leave a comment below if you have any thoughts and feelings. Yeah, I'd really like to know what everybody is feeling about the series at this point, because I think it has been a little frustrating, like with the Dougie stuff for me in particular. Like, I keep wanting to scream. Like, you know that scene with Laura when she screams, "I love you, James!" and she comes off the bike in Fire Walk with Me. Well, every time Dougie/Coop is on the screen, I feel like I just want to shout, "I love you, Dale!" And for him just to be back, because he made Twin Peaks for me, the original show. He was Twin Peaks, that character. He was the hero. And it's really difficult to watch this series without Cooper being Cooper. I know that the journey of this damaged man is an important one, but it's been a long series, I think, having to see Cooper as Dougie. I don't think that what we've been given anyone could have imagined, to be honest. I think it's perfectly unique and amazing, and the work of artists who are untouchable and who will never be able to be replicated by anybody else who might try and follow. I can't believe there are only 3 nights left of Twin Peaks. It just seems like yesterday when they announced it was coming back, and now we are so close to the end. It's emotional. It's sad to think that Twin Peaks is going again. It's going away. That's it, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.